There's been a lot of discussion recently online about AI art and the way that it's evolving and the way that it's going to be utilized in the future. And as someone who has a social media platform and no experience or expertise in the areas of art or artificial intelligence, I decided to throw my hat in the ring anyway because I have thoughts about art. I've been thinking about this for weeks now, and I wanted to kind of quickly lay my thoughts down in this video. Feel free to completely ignore it, completely disagree with me, and do so in the comments if you like, but try and be nice about it. I do want to make it very, very explicitly clear at the beginning that I am concerned about AI art and what it will do to actual artists who work hard at their craft and deserve to be paid for their work. I am concerned about that. I am nervous about that. I'm frightened of how AI art will be used in a capitalistic way to cut corners, avoid paying artists, steal the art of artists who deserve credit and work hard, and how real artists will be pushed aside in favor of a cheap, rough alternative from an AI. I am scared of all of that, for the sake of artists. But capitalism always does this. It's always about saving money and getting more money in already wealthy people's pockets. We all know that. So I'm going to put that argument aside for now and talk about how I'm not afraid of AI art or worried about it, and I don't care about it on a more philosophical level when it comes to the meaning of art and the threat that AI art poses to art itself as a concept. Let me explain. While I was thinking about this, I had to try to explain to myself what art is. That was my first challenge. If you're going to talk about AI art and its relationship to human artists, to art historically, to art in the present day, to how art is used in different mediums like film and TV, video games, painting and other forms of visual art, music, literature, poetry, etc. You got to figure out what art is for, what it does, and why is art. That sounds so pretentious. But why do we make it? What is it for? And regardless of how amazing AI art might be, how an AI might create a symphony that is more impressive than the classical symphonies of Beethoven and Mozart. If an AI is able to create a painting that captivates me, takes my breath away, has me examining it and wondering as to its meaning, none of that means anything. The reason I don't think any of that has any meaning or importance, even if it looks amazing and sounds amazing, even if AI is creating incredible art that we can admire and connect to and get something out of on an emotional, intellectual, thematic, philosophical way, even if all of that is true, and that's great if AI can create music that can make me cry, if AI can make paintings that take my breath away, if it can do all that, that's great, brilliant. Absolutely. My sentences are getting way too long and I'm losing track of how I'm starting versus where I end up. Sorry. I didn't script any of this. The reason I'm not worried is because, in my opinion, art exists as a form of communication between human beings. Art is a thing that we look at, listen to, interact with in some way on an emotional level using our senses, and we take something from it. We feel something raw, we consider its meanings, we consider its politics and its allegories. We analyze art, we feel it in our bones. And while AI art will be able to do all of that for us, I'm sure, without the link between the viewer or listener of the art and the artist, none of it really means anything. Because the AI does not have influences. The AI does not have political beliefs. The AI didn't have a childhood. The AI didn't grow up in a particular place that inspired them in some way. And it's the relationship between the artist and the recipient of the art that really matters. That's why art takes so many different forms. When you look at literature, painting, music, etc., art takes 1,000, a million different forms. And we like and dislike art depending on how we feel. And depending on our own cultural backgrounds and our own childhoods and our own tastes, which have been accumulated for 1,000 different reasons. Accumulated was the wrong word there. I hate using the wrong word. I believe that art is a form of communication between the person who creates the art and the person who sees or hears or interacts with it in some way. If AI cannot do that, because it is not an artist, it is not a human, what does any of it matter? You're only getting one half of the artistic experience. The AI art has been created out of nothing, and you will interact with it, and I'm sure you'll feel a lot and you'll be impressed and you'll admire it. But the artist doesn't exist. And so where is it coming from? What is it coming from? What struggles led to that art? What inspired it? What about the politics? What about the environment? Those things don't exist. So there is no two-way communication between the artist and the recipient. Politics is really, really, really important when it comes to art. An infinite number of pieces of art, and again, poetry, literature, music, paintings, films, TV shows, video games, these things have all been created by people with political experiences, political opinions, religious backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. These things really, really matter when it comes to art. A piece of art is an expression of a person's feelings, their background, their experiences, their daily life, their heartbreak, the society they grew up in, the religion that raised them, the job that they suffer through. There's a million different things that lead to art, that lead to a human being creating a poem, a painting, etc. And this got me thinking about the conversation, this endless conversation about overlooking a person's politics when you engage with their art. When musicians play symphonies that were created by people who we now understand were anti-Semitic or racist or sexist or whatever, we have to consider the ethics of that. For years, I refused to read any books by Yukio Mishima. I'm a book critic, and I didn't want to engage with his books because he was a fascist. Since then, I've decided to read some of his books because he's dead, he's not going to benefit from my money. So I read some of his books. They were alright. But reckoning with my own ethics, my own politics, my own feelings, when engaging with his art was important. I had to think about him. I had to think about the culture he grew up in, his own personal politics, the state of Japan at the time. I even thought about the potential politics of the people that translated his works into English. There's a lot to consider. And all of this is exciting. All of this is important. All of this makes art more three-dimensional. It makes art more complicated, and complexity is a good and beautiful thing. And so when I did all of that, I was fleshing out the relationship between me and Mishima. His art, his politics, his inspiration, his culture, his world, and mine. Because art is a relationship, it is a form of communication. I communicated with Mishima, with his world, through his art, and I had to reconcile with all of that as I read his books. It changed my attitude to his writing, to his themes and his ideas and his politics, which all came through in his art. Whether I think his art is good or bad, well, that's part of the relationship. That's part of the discussion between me and him. And I know he's dead, and I never knew him. That's not the point. The communication comes through thanks to the art, which now is timeless and limitless in a fashion. This is also important. AI art doesn't do any of that. I had an incredible conversation with Mishima through his art, because his art is a vessel for his politics, for his feelings, for his experiences, etc. And I got to experience him through his art. And when you interact with AI art, what you get? I mean, you can get a lot, as I've already said. You might be stricken by the art in a good way. It might bring you to tears, but you can't have the conversation. We create art because it is an expression of who we are, what we feel, and what we've experienced. Artificial intelligence cannot do that. And so when it comes to the concept of AI art threatening art, I don't buy it, because art should always be a conversation, a form of communication between the artist and the enjoyer of the art. We cry based on the experiences of the artist, which are conveyed through the art. And I think when you look at AI art or listen to music created by an AI, you're missing half of that conversation. The conversation, the form of communication, is incomplete. Art is incomplete if it isn't created by a human and observed and enjoyed by a human. That's my 2 cents. And this makes art complicated. This means that we have to spend time considering art, whether or not we're going to engage with that art at all. At the time of recording, that fucking Harry Potter game just came out, and everyone's talking about J.K. Rowling's transphobia, and as a trans person, yes, I am very concerned about that, and of course I'm not going to buy or promote or mention the game, even though I just fucking mentioned it, didn't I? But also then there's the very explicit anti-Semitism woven into that game, and woven into J.K. Rowling's narrative in the original books. This conversation is important, because that game is a piece of art created by multiple artists, writers, composers, whatever else. And the game is creating a conversation between all the people who are playing it or not playing it and the artists. There is a conversation going surrounding this piece of art, and the art is at the center. If the art had been created by a piece of AI, what would the conversation even mean? And what would it look like? Is it worth having? That in itself is an interesting discussion, I suppose. But I don't know enough about AI to actually think about that. It would all be theoretical and probably pointless. Now, please feel free to throw away everything I just said. To think that I'm an idiot and that I was talking out of my arse the whole time. That's fine. I just wanted to throw out my 2 cents about what I think art actually is, what it's for, what it means, why we make it, and all of that leading to the fact that I don't think AI art is that big of a deal because it's not being created by humans and enjoyed by humans. Only one half of that is true, and that's not enough for art. Art is a form of communication. Art is a conversation. Art is an expression of how we feel and what we experience, and then other people are free to enjoy that, feel something from it, criticize it, engage with it however they please. That's how I feel.